Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news, and going into the summer break, Mercedes have revealed their satisfaction with the recent race results and saying they have further upgrades planned for Spa just after the break that they believe will close the gap to the front runners, with their qualifying pace improving as well. Lots of optimism that they can indeed win races, more than one potentially, by the end of the season. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks as well for 6,000 subscribers, massive milestone for the channel. Let's keep on moving. First of all, we've got to talk about all this Piastri drama. I think people were calling it the Piasco again, which I thought was rather funny. Now, I mean, look at this from Alonso, man. This came out, I believe, as soon as either Alpine did, I'm pretty sure it was as soon as Piastri did his tweets denying the Alpine thing. This was precisely when Alonso put this story out. And wherever he is right now doing this karting thing, it's not where Otmar, the team principal at Alpine, thought he was. So, honestly, like, if Alonso and Webber and Vettel, probably not Vettel, but like, if they've orchestrated this whole thing with like Seidel and Zach Brown at McLaren, it's honestly just a masterclass. Now look, whether it actually works out in Piastri's favour is a bit of a question mark, because both sides of the argument right now, Piastri saying that no, he doesn't have to drive for Alpine and he will not. Arguably he must have the McLaren seat in that instance, even though Riccardo probably doesn't seem to know that he's going to be gone yet either. So it's a really strange situation, and Alpine say that because they promoted him he has to drive for them. But the rumour has it that Alonso, by delaying his announcement to Alpine, meant that effectively the contract was at an end on the 31st of July with Alpine and Piastri, and therefore he could have potentially signed another pre-contract with McLaren in the meantime. So it's honestly an absolute mess. They're probably going to have to call Saul Goodman if they want to figure this one out, and it might go to court. Who knows what's going to happen here. Now, Williams jumped on the bandwagon, and I think for good reason, because I mean, right now, everything you do on Formula 1 Twitter is going to get some interactions, and Williams say announcement at 3 p.m. BST. People are like, oh wow, okay, what is that in Australia? Like, is it going to be the Piastri thing? Of course, look, it wouldn't make any sense for Piastri to go and join Williams when he could just have the Alpine seat, right? The only reason, surely, why he would turn down the Alpine seat is if he has the McLaren seat and he sees that as a more attractive option. But yet, that's far from clear either. So it's either Mark Webber having a masterclass here as being Piastri's manager, or it's all going to go badly wrong for everyone involved. Right now, it seems to have gone worse for Alpine, but that might not be how the story ends. Who knows? So Williams then go on to confirm, and that was the thing. Mercedes were like, well, I've got a second here, right? There must be something going on with this announcement, but it probably was what most people would have expected it to be. That being Albon extending his contract there. So for 2023 and beyond, a multi-year contract. Now, I think Alonso's multi-year contract at Aston Martin is 3 years. Not sure how long Albon's is, whether it's 2 or 3. Reading between the lines of the article, it's probably just a 2-year deal, but I suppose we'll see what happens here. So pretty cool stuff. Happy for Albon, of course, that he's going to stick around. Makes sense. Generally pretty tough to be in the Williams nowadays, but maybe they can make some progress over the next couple of years and occasionally pick up points, which is of course nice for Albon whenever he is able to achieve it. The second driver unclear, whether Latifi stays, whether Nick de Vries gets a seat there, whether it's possible for even a Logan Sargent currently in Formula 2 to get that seat. Like, that is obviously the big question mark right now. And also there are some other questions about other drivers, even the likes of Mick Schumacher. This was hilarious trolling though from Albon. He tweets this out: I understand that with my agreement. Williams Racing have put out a press release this afternoon that I'm driving for them next year. This is correct, and I've signed a contract with Williams for 2023. I will be driving for Williams next year. So this is the Piastri tweet, but swapped the other way around. So good to see it's already becoming a meme format the very next day, and to get 200,000 likes for good reason. Even Piastri replies to this one, right, to 60k likes as well. So I don't know what's going on right now, but Formula 1 Twitter is on fire as per usual. Of course, the other side of the story here is the Riccardo situation. If Piastri has indeed turned down the Alpine seat, the formerly Renault team, of course, very well known and well versed with Daniel Ricciardo, the question has been for Ricciardo, he apparently has an option if he wants to continue with the team. Right? He's said he's committed to the team and wants to stay. They've kind of said they're committed to him, but the reality is with the Zach Brown teams, like, they have a lot of drivers on that program that they can kind of tease with Formula 1 spots, and maybe Piastri is another one of them coming into the mix. So Ricciardo apparently has about a month or so to decide if he wants to stay at McLaren, and if he does decide to stay and doesn't pursue another offer, then he's almost asking for McLaren to just replace him, right, and leave him without a seat. So Ricciardo has to be clever really here and look for other options without, I suppose, putting his future entirely in McLaren's hands. That is one of the questions that he will have to answer, and apparently Otmar at Alpine hasn't ruled out the possibility of Ricciardo returning if they can't keep hold of Piastri. So if Piastri does go to McLaren, then maybe Riccardo back to Renault Alpine is what will happen. That's probably the most likely scenario right now, but it's rather difficult to say. Another driver that is in conversation is Mick Schumacher. There has been some rumours over the last 24 hours that, again, Haas aren't so happy with Mick Schumacher in this team. That would be kind of surprising because he did almost seem to turn a corner when he got his first points, and even since then has looked like something of a different driver. And he's part of the Ferrari program kind of thing, right? Which makes sense because of his dad, and therefore does he want to leave the Haas Ferrari outfit? It's a bit of a question mark. So not exactly clear what's going to happen there, whether Haas even want to keep him, and if they don't, then he's got to try and find a seat elsewhere, which also might be somewhat challenging, right? But probably Alpine Riccardo is what people are saying right now. I just wanted to give you guys an update on that because it's a rather hectic situation, and also on my throwing a dig in Alonso, maybe fair enough, because Alonso doesn't seem to get on particularly well with that entire outfit over the last few days, saying that he made a massive mistake leaving for Aston Martin, saying that we perform at a much higher level. That may well be true, but maybe Alonso sees it differently for various reasons. Let's talk about Mercedes then, right? After some great progress the last few races, Lewis Hamilton has now gone P3, 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 P2, P2 in his last 5 races. 5 podiums in a row, edging ever closer to a victory. Mercedes this season have now got their pole position. You feel like it's kind of only a matter of time until they somehow put up a victory. Obviously, reliability issues for their rivals have helped them get those placements that maybe they wouldn't otherwise deserve, but all 6 cars at the front finished the race in Hungary, and they still got a double podium. So Mercedes, as they like to do after the weekend, were debriefing about the weekend. There were 2 real interesting things there that Andrew Chauvelin liked to talk about. Firstly was the step they've taken seemingly in qualifying pace. We saw probably for the first time this year, it was back in Austria, when in quali they looked like they're on good form. Mercedes could potentially put a car on the front, if not the second row. Then both drivers have a crash, pushing for that extra edge when they felt pole position was maybe in the grasp. In France, they weren't really where they needed to be, and then most recently, of course, in Hungary, it was a different story again, where Hamilton was very competitive, as was Russell the entire qualifying session, and then Hamilton's DRS issue prevented him going for a proper run on that new set of tyres, and it was Russell who grabbed the pole position with a remarkable lap. So their qualifying pace is showing a lot of promise to Mercedes in terms of being able to win races, but also the fact that they've got further upgrades in the works. They say they will keep developing this car. They've got a few more things on the horizon, especially for Spa, where they are expecting to be able to close the gap to the front runners.
How does the double podium feel going into the break? Well, this last one was particularly satisfying because we weren't relying on the misfortune of anyone dropping out with a reliability problem. The car pace was also very good, and it's always nice to have a good race before you go into that period of holiday. The most satisfying thing, though, is to see where the car is in terms of pace now in qualifying in the race. We had a lot of ground to make up from the start of the year. We've been working really hard trying to bring bits to every race, and it is really satisfying now to see that we're racing with the Ferraris, with the Red Bulls, right at the front. Given this incredible result, what can we expect in terms of performance for the second half of the season? Well, we've got more coming. So we're trying to bring some performance to Spa. That will hopefully close that gap. We haven't got far to go now, but we'll keep developing the car for a little while now. We're quite excited though. The last few races have been the most fun we've had all year, and we're just hoping that we can take that extra step because we definitely want to be winning races in the near future. So we're working hard to try and achieve that.
So of course that's the ideal scenario, right? And I do wonder exactly what the plan will be for Red Bull, because they will bring some further upgrades. But if you're Red Bull right now, you know that you've got both championships pretty much under lock and key. As long as you don't just DNF all the races, they're probably going to win both championships, right? So if you're Red Bull, you might start to think, okay, maybe let's just bring more resources into developing next year's car and not worry about this year's one so much, because we'll be able to pick up a good enough points regardless, which is probably true. And if that's the case, then Red Bull might just think, okay, let's just bring our resources the other way, and then Mercedes might be able to catch up and overtake, at least in theory. Of course, the other talking point here is the technical directive that's going to stiffen up the flaws that George Russell was actually rather blunt and adamant that Red Bull and Ferrari are exploiting this loophole in the rules that is going to be closed from Spa. He reckons 2 or 3 tenths of a second can be gained by Mercedes relative to those two teams, and then of course on top of that, the further upgrades that Mercedes say they are bringing, right? So it's kind of interesting that Mercedes are being this gung-ho in bringing so many upgrades, because years, they could switch their focus to next year, but maybe they're thinking, look, let's try and maximize as much as we can from this car design, from this concept that they have with the no side pods, and say, look, what's the maximum we can achieve with this car theoretically? And every upgrade they bring is going to be one step towards further understanding as to what they should do next year. So I think from many different perspectives, it makes sense what Mercedes are doing, but being able to put a car on pole last weekend, and also being able to actually compete on race pace for the first time realistically in quite some time. Yes, there were some strategic errors from Ferrari that gifted some of those placements again, but still, all the cars finished. They were still competing on pure race pace. Like Hamilton was able to close up about a 10-second gap to Carlos Sainz on the same compounded tyres within about 5 or 6 laps. That just shows that the level is there for Mercedes in race pace. It's now getting there for quali, and they want to take another step in Spa. So as it does seem to be, Verstappen is more than likely away and gone in the championship classification. He's 80 points ahead of Leclerc. That's just not going to happen for that to be overturned. But Hamilton, for example, is only, 32 points behind Leclerc. So he's way closer to Leclerc than Leclerc is to Verstappen, right? So the 2 through 6th right now is incredibly hotly contested. Hamilton could theoretically still get second place. Of course, look, he's not playing for second place. Neither is George Russell. But after the way the first few races went of the season, if you'd have told Hamilton at this point that he still had a sniff of a shout of P2 in the championship, he'd have probably taken that all things considered. So I think it does create some exciting race dynamics going forward, and also it does open the door still to Mercedes getting P2 in the constructors. Now, look, again, they're not going to care really whether they're P2, P3 in the constructors from the competitive nature of the team, but P2 is better in terms of money and revenue and stuff like that you get from placing second than you get from placing third. So it would be nice for Mercedes to somehow sneak seconds in at the 2-horse race of the 2 best cars so far this season, of course, that don't include theirs. Ferrari would be the team to get overhauled in that case. We've seen them saying that yes, their season actually hasn't been too bad. We've deserved better. The season is a positive so far. They really haven't made that many errors, and there's nothing to change within the team. So I'm sure Mercedes are looking at this, and even like Chauvelin said earlier in that video, that they knew from Friday that the hard tyre was going to be a terrible tyre to go with, because they were struggling for grip on Friday, and then in the race it was 30 degrees cooler. So they knew from the outset that a hard tyre was going to be a disaster, and they never even considered it in the race. And they're looking at Ferrari thinking, well, if they're saying stuff like this, that we don't even need to make any changes, then second of the constructors could be signed, sealed and delivered if they continue to improve their car. And I thought this is funny as well from Ferrari, just to close out here. They put together a video where they effectively seem to take the mick out of themselves. It's an awesome graphic representation of the race. The problem is the race was so bad for them that it just doesn't look particularly good, right? I mean, here they go, they're talking about the overtakes to that end here. This is Leclerc on George Russell, of course, and then look, Verstappen's making progress through the field. This is where they decide to bring him in and swap out the mediums for the hards, and then obviously it was an absolute disaster class from then onwards. So I'm kind of confused why they did this, to be honest. They were getting roasted in the replies, as you might expect, but yeah, Ferrari doing Ferrari things. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.